everything that he went through when he was racing, from when his dad died to getting in the car the next week, the expectations, you inherited a fan base, he wasn't winning, just the mental side of that. And Dale Jr. joins us now. And I know it's a long time ago, but that mental part of preparing for a race, how many times do you think you went into a race where mentally you weren't in a good place?
Well, when you're doing it every single week, you certainly had your good days and bad days when you could tell where you were last week mentally and where you were this week. And it was happening in such a repetitive, process that there were days when you got up and you felt really great. You felt like, man, this is going to be a great day. I can feel it. Or, you had a great disposition and could handle adversity better. And then there were days when you got up out of bed and you had no motivation or you had no confidence. You maybe had something going on in your personal life that had you down and depressed. And then when you were faced with any adversity during that day or that race, you didn't handle it well and you didn't overcome it. And, you kind of fell apart. You definitely going to experience that in sports. When you're competing on a regular basis, you're going to have those days when you mentally just have it together, and then those moments when you're just overwhelmed. And I was always affected. My personal life and my home life was the driving factor for me. And so if things were good and things were smooth for me at home, things were going to go pretty well at the racetrack. I think that might have been the other way around too. Sometimes if things didn't go well at the racetrack, things went bad at home. That's for sure. If I failed, and I had stretches of failure, where just I was a miserable person every day of the week.
But how many times did you get into a car and say, I shouldn't be in this car?
I never did that. It was a job, I was just showing up to work and supposed to be there, felt like I belonged there. But there were days when you looked around and you just knew you didn't have that same confidence as the guy next to you. So when we go to the driver's introduction, all the drivers are forced into this little space together, and we're going to get introduced to the crowd. And so you are exposed to all the competition right there in that moment before you're going to go compete. And you can see guys that are ready to get after it. And you can see guys that are just, they're not up on the chip. They're not fired up to be there. I don't know. Everybody kind of approaches it differently, but
can you say anything to anybody?
What do you mean?
Like, could you tell your crew chief, or like you have doubts, or hey, I'm just not there, or like, did you just suppress it?
Yeah, you wouldn't want to say that because you don't want your team to hear it, or you didn't want your crew chief or anybody to think that you weren't logged in, and you weren't there. Everybody. With most sports, racing is a team effort, and you definitely don't want, your personal issues or anything you got going on, I guess, that wasn't the Jackman's problem. That he showed up, he's there, he's plugged in, he's prepared all week. And so you suppressed it and didn't say anything. Now, after the race, you might go up to your crew chief and say, hey, man, I'm sorry. As you could probably tell, I wasn't with it this week, or I wasn't with it today. This is why. I'm going to try to fix that. How can you help me fix that? And you try to do a better job the next week.
But you had a big fan base. Did like the pressure at a young age of living up to what they wanted? The other drivers didn't have that. You can say that's good and bad, but like you didn't want to let them down.
No, you didn't. And I had a hard time feeling like a victim there, because I felt like that fan base was super that fan base was absolutely the reason why I was able to keep my job in certain situations when probably the next guy would have got fired. There was a stretch when I was going things were going pretty bad with my job at Rick Hendrick, and anyone else would have got let go. But my fan base and the support that I had from the fans is the reason why I wasn't let go. And so, being the most popular driver, that saved my butt a few times in my career. And, and I was able to turn it around and get back to victory lane, do all that. But I was, knowing that it was this blessing, I kind of felt guilty to ever look at that pressure as a bad thing or something that I didn't want to have, because that support from those fans was the same thing that was keeping me going and literally keeping me in the seat at certain points in my career.
You didn't ever think about just pulling in pit row and then just getting out of the car and just walking away?
No, I mean, certainly may have thought about it a time or two. I mean, there was some. I'll tell you. I mean, to be quite honest, Dan, when we went to Rockingham after Dad died, I mean, I didn't want to run that race. I didn't want to be at home by myself either. I wanted to be at the racetrack and I wanted something to occupy my mind.
And that's a week after your father died.
Yeah. So he died, and then next weekend we're at Rockingham, and I didn't want to be home, not racing. That probably would have been a miserable realization when they drop the green flag and you're not out there. Like, oh, this was a bad idea. I should have been in that race. But I certainly didn't. I wasn't getting up that morning going, man, I'm looking forward to this. I just needed to be at the track. I really didn't want to be behind the wheel. But I mean, it was, the next couple weeks down the road, that emotion goes away. And there were certain times in the droughts in the windless droughts and the struggles when I would walk, I wouldn't really say it. I wouldn't really feel it on race day. Every day you get up and get in the car, you're thinking, this is the day it could turn around. If I get in this car, this might be the day it goes right. But on Monday, after it didn't go right, I'd walk into the office and talk to my sister or somebody and say, I'm done with this. This is not fun. I'm not having any fun. I don't want to do this anymore. But the machine was so big, it was going right. I can't stop it.
You were a brand.
I was, right. You can't just, I couldn't stop it, right? Even if I wanted to stop it, I couldn't get off that train. It too many moving parts. And it's probably best, that I didn't have that choice. It's probably best I didn't have control, of that decision, because I would have probably made the wrong decision in that moment. But it was whatever. I'm glad I stuck it out, because I did get back to winning some races and was able to kind of have some great moments.